In a land defined by big mountains and endless coastline, Alaska's biggest city appears dwarfed by its surroundings. Anchorage is home to 250,000 people, nearly half the state's population. It looks much like any other modern American city, on the surface at least. But underneath is a restless earth. In 1964, one of the most devastating earthquakes ever recorded struck Anchorage and nearly wiped it off the face of the earth. For millions of years, the land here has been shaped by the collision of the North American plate with the Pacific plate deep underground, making Alaska one of the world's most active seismic areas.
6 of the 10 largest earthquakes in North America have occurred up here in Alaska. There's on the order of 1,000 per month that are measured and recorded, and even then we don't get them all. There's magnitude 4 earthquakes that aren't measured in the Aleutians, which could easily make headlines in California.
In March 1964, the last thing most residents were thinking about was what was happening 14 miles below their feet. Alaska was a newly minted state, having joined the Union 4 years earlier in 1959. Normal American life appeared to be finally taking hold here. On the afternoon of March 27th, Susan Bramstead was driving on this downtown street with her mother.
As we stopped at the intersection, our dog kept jumping around in the car from the front seat to the back seat and just acting very agitated.
Here at All Saints Episcopal Church, the Reverend Norman Elliott was preparing his service.
On every Friday in Lent, it was the custom here to have the service of the Stations of the Cross, and we would begin at 5:15.
140 miles east in the port town of Valdez, John Knudsen, a truck driver from Anchorage, was delivering a refrigerator to Gilson's appliance store.
It was just a regular day. It was Good Friday. I was behind Gilson's store.
Back in Anchorage, the Reverend Elliott was reciting a prophetic biblical verse.
And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split, and the earth quaked.
At that moment, 5:36 p.m., the largest earthquake in North America was unleashed on Anchorage, Alaska.
A patch of the Earth's crust that's about 100 kilometers wide by 800 kilometers long, a humongous area, started to rip and tear.
And then as the land opened up, the earth just fell in front of us and left nothing but a black hole. A Volkswagen went on ahead and hung down the street, and I remember thinking the poor man must have been killed.
60 seconds went by and the earth kept shaking. Fissures opened in the land, swallowing whatever was above them. As the earth rolled and shifted, buildings began buckling.
And I watched the walls come towards us and then go back.
2 minutes gone by. The new J.C. Penney building collapsed, killing 2 people. 4th Avenue split down the middle. A few miles south of downtown, the neighborhood of Turnagain Arm slid into the sea. The houses there had been built on top of soft, unstable clay. 3 people and 75 houses disappeared in the slide. The quake had now been going on for 3 minutes. In Valdez, John Knudsen was watching from the edge of town 200 yards away from the docks when the end came.
Right over here was the Kenry dock. About 400 feet over was the main dock that the big ships came to.
The The freighter China was being unloaded at the dock when the quake hit. Undersea landslides out in the ocean created giant seismic waves called tsunamis.
The quake has generated sea waves up to 30 to 35 feet at irregular time intervals. Is that correct?
The largest wave run-up height was on the order of 210 feet, a little bit outside of Valdez.
The waves flung the 7,000-ton freighter into the air.
I could see the bow of the China above the building on the dock. And man, did I ever get out of there. I backed the truck around and I took off.
Whatever was on the waterfront was sucked out to sea.
And I picked up the guy that ran the Camry. And I says, "Where's your wife?" He said, "Well, the last time I saw her, she was in the trailer and I saw the trailer rolling in the water as the wave hit it. So I guess she's gone."
35 people were swept away. Valdez was in ruins. Nearly 5 minutes after it began, the earth finally stopped shaking. It had lasted more than 4 times as long as the Great San Francisco earthquake of 1906. The waves generated in Alaska were so large, they killed 15 people as far as 2,000 miles away on the coasts of Oregon and California. The quake was an astonishing magnitude 9.2. The largest, most powerful earthquake ever to hit North America.
The amount of energy in the 1964 earthquake was roughly equivalent to the amount of energy that would have been released in about 63,000 Hiroshima-sized atomic bombs.
In Alaska, there were 131 dead and 5,000 homeless. Alaskans gathered themselves, buried their dead, and began rebuilding their shattered lives. Today, a new Anchorage rises from the ashes of the old town. In Turnagain Arm, high-priced houses with ocean views have been built directly on top of the rubble of the old neighborhood. The clay earth is still unstable here. In Valdez, a new port was built on higher ground 4 miles down the coast. Today, the old town is a graveyard. With each low tide, the awful destruction of that day is exposed again in the mud flats by the shattered docks. For the survivors, the 1964 earthquake can never be forgotten. And one awful, awe-inspiring reality cannot be ignored. The great forces that shape the land still shape everyday life here. Alaska's geology would make news again 5 years later in 1969, when oil was discovered on the North Slope. The strike sparked the largest private construction project in history, the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline.